My anxiety lies to me all the time, and I started to learn how to collect receipts, and I'm going to show you how as well. If you're new here, I'm Dr. Amber, clinical psychologist and author of A Parent's Guide to Self-Regulation. And my goal is to make sure that your kids always feel exactly how much you love them without letting all the other stuff and getting in the way, like anxiety. I am an anxious person. I have lived with anxiety for a long time, and what I've noticed about myself is that if I go off of my memory or how I feel, sometimes I start to misinterpret the reality of what's actually happening. This is really common for a lot of people who have anxiety, especially parents. And so what I started to do was collect, and by that I mean simply tracking the things that I am worried about. I have a really good example of this. Last year, I noticed my son started to complain of headache. And what that meant for me is, oh my gosh, he's having headaches, something's wrong with his brain, something bad is going to happen. But instead of moving and flowing with that anxious fear, worry state that was brewing inside of me, I simply just started to track anytime he told me he had a headache. So if he said, hey, mommy, I have a headache, I pulled out my notes app and I recorded, this is the date, this is the time, these were the details about the situation, this is the headache. I did that all last year, and turns out in a span of 12 months, my son only had maybe like 7 or 8 headaches, which in the grand scheme of things, really not concerning. But if I had not been careful, my worry and my fears around that would have ballooned into something much bigger. So what that has allowed me to do is actually track the reality of what is happening and then know how to manage it and handle it. And I tend to do that with anything that I find myself worried about. My kids' health, my health, exercise. What it does, it brings me back to the present and actually look at the data of what is happening, because anxiety will always try to convince me that something bigger is going on that is more urgent and needs my attention, when really it's not that bad. If you find yourself also worrying about all the things and sometimes getting lost in terms of what's actually happening versus what your anxiety is trying to tell you, I hope you try this.